Boarding school. A couple years ago, around 2006 to 2007, I was studying in a boarding school, which is right across the other side of the country. This boarding school used to be an old hospital, mostly used to treat those who fought against the Germans after World War II. But I'm certain, whether the grounds are older, since whatever's present there was not from this century. The boarding school was located on the edge of a forest, with a 4-kilometer walk to the town. Now, me and a friend of mine were both interested in the paranormal, me being a believer and my friend being a little skeptical. We had heard rumors of the school or the school grounds being more or less haunted. One of the students claimed hearing weird noises. Others were ready to use a Ouija board to find out what was going on there. Some claim that something was residing in a specific part of the school. And that's what I'll tell you about. Me and my friend were in a specific part of the school. It was the library and some classrooms that were located there. It was early night, and we were just chatting and having some fun when all the lights went out at the same time. First, we reckoned that it must be because of trouble with the electricity. But when we looked out in the hall, nothing was wrong. We just kept talking and having fun until the fire door, a large heavy steel door, slammed. Both my friend and myself tried to open it without success. It was as if someone held the door closed. Then the lights began to flicker, and it became really cold. It felt to me as if someone gripped me from behind and breathed into my ears, and both my friend and me heard the sound of bells. This said, there was bells 21.5 kilometers away, yet the bells sounded really, really close. We finally managed to open the fire door and it all stopped. But since then, the lights never worked, and there was always cold in that part of the school. Later that week, I went to the local library to research some stuff about the town, revealing that the grounds where the boarding school is located was used to bury those who weren't allowed in holy grounds. Examples: suicide victims, murderers, victims of the Black Plague, dead children who weren't baptized, and so on. I took this as an explanation to some of the many weird things that happened there. Haunted boarding school. When I was 16 to 18 years old, I was in high school. I lived in a boarding house in a little village outside Aarhus, Denmark. The school was quite old, and I learned that before the buildings were opened as a school, there used to be a huge farmhouse on the property in the 1600s. The farmhouse burned down, and after some years, the school was built. Over the years, more buildings were added, but the main building always stood as the day it did, back in 1917. I didn't believe in ghosts before I moved to the school, but I definitely do now. Even though the only experiences I had was at the school, almost 20 years ago. In the 1960s, there were rooms on the 3rd floor of the main building, but after 2 girls died there, the rooms were closed off, and the 2 new wings were built, one for girls and one for boys. There is absolutely nothing in those tiny rooms in the main building anymore. I have been up there once with one of the teachers, because my friends and I kept saying that we saw a girl dressed in white looking at us from one of the little windows. This happened frequently in the evenings when we were coming back from riding or swimming. We used to see a candle burning behind her and her just standing there watching us. The teacher finally took us up there one evening, and true enough, except for spiders and dust, there was absolutely nothing there. And it was very clear that no one had been up there for years. We still kept seeing the girl in the window, and even though I haven't been back since I left in 1996, I'm sure she's still there. One of my friends, who used to hear horses in the night behind the main building, even though they rushed to the windows, they saw nothing, but heard the horses as if they were passing just below the windows. But the scariest experience happened in my dorm room one night. The rooms were placed like this. From the long main corridor, doors led to small halls and kitchens where we had closets, a sink, and 2 chairs. From the hall, 2 doors led to 2 rooms. My room was on the left, and my friend's was on the right. Our rooms were on the 3rd floor, at the very end of the corridor, right by the stairs. One night I was asleep, and my friend was out drinking in the disco. Something woke me up, and straight away, I thought she came back drunk and was loud in the hall. I opened my eyes and listened, but heard nothing. I looked towards my door, which was closed, and saw it open slowly. I still thought it was my friend, so I sat up in bed waiting for her to come in. But then a little gray girl appeared. She was about 7 to 8 years old with long hair and a dress from the beginning of the 1900s. She was all gray. I froze and just stared at her, and she stared at me. She didn't smile, she didn't say anything, just kept looking at me. After a few seconds, I panicked and closed my eyes and hid under the blanket. I don't know how long I was lying there under the blanket. The next thing I heard was footsteps on the stairs, doors open, and my drunk friend fiddling with her keys. At the time, I was really scared, but since then, I've experienced absolutely nothing, and now I feel sorry that I didn't speak to the little girl or to the one in the main building. It would have been nice to knowing their stories. Thank you for reading my story, and who knows, maybe one day I'll have another one to share. Haunted school and house. Where to begin? I am a Native American from Arizona, and I'm 20 years old. First, let me start with a little history. In the late 1800s, there were boarding schools and missions that were built for Native American children. Children were forced into these places where the government hoped to kill the Indian and save the man. At these places, Native American children experienced being beaten for speaking their native language, sexually assaulted, and even death. To this day, there are still boarding schools and missions. With all the traumatic things that have happened at these places, you would understand that there would have a lot of negative energy there. At the age of 5, I was sent to a mission, and it was here where I experienced a lot of my ghostly experiences. On the first night, I was paddled, spanked with a wooden board, and was left to stand in the hallway with my nose in the corner. And it was that night I experienced my first ghost encounter. As I'm standing there, I hear a humming noise coming from the restroom, and kids laughing. And after I had told the person in charge what I heard, they just sent me to bed and told me to pray. The more time I spent here, I learned that the school was built on top of a Native American cemetery. In the little boys' dormitory, there were little ghost children known to run down the halls and a tall, dark figure that would walk around. On the older boys' dormitory, there was a ghost girl that would knock things down and a dark figure that would run and that would like to stand near the exit light. On the older girls' dormitory, that was where a lot of demon possessions took place. One incident where the girls were pulling out their hair and jumping like frogs and cussing. Sounds funny, but hearing these as a kid wasn't funny. And on the little girl's side, there was 2 little girls. Over time, I got used to hearing and seeing these things. The night before my 8th grade promotion, a couple friends and I decided to stay up all night and tell stories. It was about 12 when the bathroom door opened on its own. My friend decided to go over and was talking to something that was in the restroom and came back and told us, "It wants to talk to you guys." When those words came out of his mouth, the broom and mop fell, and the dorm parents, people who watched over us in the dormitory, came out of their rooms and asked us what was going on. When we told them, they checked the restroom and the mop and broom were lying on the ground. I had left when I finished 8th grade and moved back home where the strange occurrences followed me. At night, it sounds like something is knocking on my wall and scratching the bottom of my bed. My bed shakes in the middle of the night, and I see a shadow figure. This went on until I graduated high school and left for college, where I moved and started a new life in a new town. At the apartment I just moved into, I would notice strange things being moved, and I just got a kitten that would hiss and always be on edge like it was scared. And sometimes I would notice the kitten staring in a direction and run over to that area, and it would just start pouncing and running like it was playing with someone. One night, my grandparents stayed the night. At about 4, my grandma had gotten up to go to the bathroom, and she noticed a black figure standing in the hallway in front of my door. I usually woke about 4:30 to go to work, and when she called out to it, it disappeared. My mom had lived in the town where I was going to college. I had lived with my grandparents from when I was an infant to when I graduated high school. And one day I washed my clothes at her house, and we were sitting in the living room when the dryer stopped. And when I checked the dryer, the door was open and some clothes were on the ground. After that incident, my mom had her house blessed. After a year of college, I moved back with my grandparents, and at this time, there were more things happening, like my cousin seeing a black figure crawling out of my room from my door slamming shut. I thought I could ignore these until one night I had a dream about the end of the world, and I was walking a path to heaven with my family, when all of a sudden, a flood came and washed us away. I managed to swim to the side of the path and found a door where I entered, and it was dark and all I could see was an exit light, just like the one from the mission. And in that dark room, a man told me to hide, where I did. And then I saw a dark figure that was hairy walking towards me. I remember not being able to tell or do anything, and then I was slapped in the face, and that's when I woke up with my face stinging. I still have no idea what that dream meant or who slapped me. Sometimes I think it was God waking me up before the thing could get me, or if it was the thing telling me that it could get inside my head and that it could touch me. Days later, I had a prayer done for me, and since then, I haven't had any experiences. I don't know if the ghosts at the missions were those kids who died there and the tall, dark figures being the people who harmed the kids or what, but whatever it was, I think it latched itself onto me. This story is real, and so is my ghostly encounter. You may choose to believe it or not. Sorry if this story seems all over the place. I am typing this out on my phone. If I try to scroll back to the top, I'll just refresh the page, and I'd have to restart. But any questions or comments, you can email me. Thanks for reading.